video you're about to watch has been designed to take you deeper, higher, and wider into Yahweh. Enjoy, and please subscribe. Thank you.
Father, we just want to glorify your name. I don't know where each of you were right now, but you know the heartbeat of the Father is for us to enter in, to step into Him. You know, we've never understood that because we've never separated our soul and our spirit, but now that we have the ability and the capacity to understand that I'm a spirit being, and I get to go into Him. I get to project all of my being into the fullness of Yeshua, Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. We get to go into the Father. We get to go into Holy Spirit. We get to go into the fullness of the Yod, and we get to understand what the Yod represents and the fullness of that Hebraic letter. The Hey, the Vav, the Hey. We get to step into all of who Yahweh is, operating out of His faces, living in His kingdom, projecting that fullness into the earth. It is incredible. So Father, we want to honor and praise you tonight. And Father, I know that there's so much that we don't know yet because you're an infinite God with infinite wisdom and infinite understanding and revelation. And there's just so much progression in what you have taught and what you have poured into us over the last couple of years, Father. We need to begin to understand that there's so much more because every day is a new day. Every day there's more revelation, more insight, more knowledge that we are ready for, that you want to put into our hearts, that you want to pour into who we are, so we can literally become who you've destined for us to be, so we can walk in the things that you've called us to walk in, Father. And it's more than what we ever thought of fathom. It's more than what we ever thought possible, even more than what they have told us we will walk in. We're beginning to understand that we are doing greater things than what you ever did while you were in the earth. We're beginning to understand that you have revealed this to us because your desire is for the ecclesia to take the kingdom of earth and to align it. All creation has been waiting for us, the sons and the daughters. So Father, now that we are rising, now that we are becoming what we need to be, let's begin to run with all that's ours. Take it by force and run with everything you've given. Father, we honor and love and worship and praise you. We thank you for the angels that's here. Father, overshadowing this building, overshadowing this business. Father, we want to thank you for the opportunity and the open doors that's given for us in the city. And we pray that as we speak, that it will go into the ground and will open up the ground. Go into the hearts of the people as it's the living word and speaking as an oracle. Going into the hearts and ripping out religious beliefs and religious systems and religious conceptions that bonds your people to entering into the fullness. Father, we love you, we praise you, in the name of Yeshua. Amen. Whew. Okay, how are you guys doing? What I want to do over the next couple of days, a couple of weeks, I guess 2 weeks, maybe 3, is to see how far we get tonight. But I want to touch on demonic trading and godly trading. And it is for us to begin to understand that because of ignorance, because of a lack of understanding of who we are, mountains, doors, gates, that we are supposed to rule within the earth, occupation of these dimensions that the Father has really allocated to us, the ecclesia, not taking back what belongs to us, leaving Satan at hand with all of this stuff, reminding ourselves that he was a covering cherub, understanding that what would happen is over the Ark of the Covenant, the presence and the glory of Yahweh, there will be revelation, knowledge, insight going into the covering cherub, and eventually to such an extent that they won't be able to obtain all the revelation, that they would turn and they would release all that revelation to creation. Eventually, when Satan got off this revelation and began to realize that it wasn't given to him and the angelic canopy, it was given to man, he was upset by it. We understand this, right? This is in Ezekiel 28. And what he basically did is began to trade this knowledge with a third of the angels. And they went with him, right? Now we begin to understand that out of that insight, out of that understanding, everything we do as the church, as God's people, if we have not taken back the mountains that's occupied by the demonic entity, and we trading into a church system, into any dimension within this earth, and not understanding what we are doing, not understanding about the motives and the heart. And that's also again where Hebrews 4:12 comes in, the dividing of the thoughts and intent of the heart. Yes. And motivation. What are you doing? What you're doing? What's the reason you're doing it? Why are you doing it? What I want to do tonight is I want to look at a couple of these trading floors. Now, if you've listened to this is his notes Not exactly his notes, but the idea is kind of comes from everything he's taught. He's one of my main mentors, so I've engaged into this. I mean, I've been training all my life. I've been part of a big church, just kind of like he was, and with the same kind of hope that we have. You know, you're part of this church, you're faithful to this church. The church have branches. They branch out to Cape Town. They ask me if I'd go there. We go there, and all in the hope of becoming a pastor there, all in the hope of really just being part of the ministry, doing the things that needs to be done. So we become as faithful as you can. You're trading your finances in there. You're putting everything you can possibly in there, not realizing, not understanding really what we're doing.
Come on.
So slowly what I'm going to try and do tonight, and of course it's not just in the church system, it's in our day-to-day lives. That we give into things that we just don't understand. We can call it sins of omission, doing things that we know, but we don't know is evil or wrong, but we keep on doing it just because there's no other understanding or revelation of it. What I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and frame an understanding regarding 7 trading frauds that we have been trading on as the ecclesia, that we need to repent of, turn away from, and begin to step up as the Father begins to align us back into place. Now, everybody in this room might not have traded on these floors, but it really ends up being something that you almost cannot help. It's just something that we do, not because you want to go out and trade on the wrong floor, just simply because there's things that we don't know because it's never been taught. But the key to all of this is understanding if we still believe as the church, and you can go ask anybody in the church, they will tell you that Satan has a kingdom. Which means Satan has a kingdom, and his kingdom is called the kingdom of darkness. Right? And we begin to understand, we'll take you to the scripture where Jesus says, you know, if Satan's kingdom is casting out demons, then he's coming against himself. And a kingdom that comes against himself cannot stand. And we read that in context. So just quote me that scripture, I shall flappeth you. Because if you look in context, he wasn't focused on the fact that Satan has a kingdom. Matter of fact, that wasn't even his focus in any way, fashion, or form. It was the idea that one kingdom can't come against another and stand. So that's the point he was making. He wasn't telling a theological statement that Satan has a kingdom. And if Satan does have a kingdom, he does not have the right to have that kingdom because it does not belong to him. Anything and everything that Satan has at hand, we have given him, or we have not occupied so he could just take it. Right, why? He's a thief. He comes to kill, steal, and destroy. That's all he wants to do. So he doesn't ask, can I have this? He takes it because we don't occupy it. And we're beginning to understand through Joshua and Caleb looking at Joshua at the age of 80, and he says, I want my mountain. Now, there's a two-way connotation, of course. He could have said, well, I want a mountain so that I can go and build my mansion there. But that's not what he applied. He was a spiritual man. He engaged with Joshua and with Moses in the heavens, just like the word might not express or explain. But he was a man of God, deep in the revelation of the full kingdom of Yahweh, face-to-face engagement, face-to-face communication in the tent. That was the blueprint that Yahweh gave to Moses, that Joshua and Caleb engaged in most of their days. And you can go into history facts regarding all that stuff, and you understand that it's true. For example, Moses would go into the tent, and Aaron would go with him, not Aaron, and Joshua would go with him. Moses would come out, but Joshua would stay. And we also begin to understand that Caleb said to Joshua, I want my mountain. And what he was really saying is, I want to take back what the enemies had in hand. The sphere of my rule, that dimension that the Father has given me, that which was allocated to me as a son of the Most High, I want it back. You know, I don't know where you're at in your walk with Yahweh. If you haven't walked up in the kingdom of heaven and taken your scroll and read it yet, it will be a good idea to do that. I don't know what happened on Thursday, but on Thursday night I ministered on that. And for some reason, that teaching is gone. It's not on Facebook. I don't know where it is. It's disappeared off the face of the planet. There's lots of comments on there. It was very exciting, and it's just gone. But it was about the scrolls and the fact that you need to go get your scroll. The idea is to understand what's allocated to you in the earth according to what you agreed.
Yes.
You guys can remember Grace said something on the weekend, and it was really interesting. She said, talk about the future past, and you standing before the Father, and there being certain tasks, and you say, I'll do that. That was your first agreement to it. And of course, it was shown to you in detail what you would go through. But of course, there's no record in heaven of the things that you engage in the earth. But that's why Yeshua had to get another chance in the earth to choose to go ahead. That's why I was in the garden, realizing, oh, wait, I've got flesh now, and this was probably not the best idea. Because, you know, when you start sweating blood, you're in dismay. You're a little bit freaked out. And I've never stressed blood, but when you do, you know that there's serious stuff about to happen, right? But she said that, and I like that because, of course, we understand it to be true. And once you've agreed on your scroll and you sent into your mother's womb, you birthed into the earth. Now, the problem, of course, with being birthed into the earth is you're born into sin. And then the process of you being taught and trained and equipped and all this stuff happens. So by the time you get born again or meet up with Yeshua or Jesus Christ and he begins to train and equip you, you have to go through this whole process of getting yourself re-established as a son, grow in revelation, knowledge, insight, because that which we were taught is not going to benefit you in the kingdom of heaven. So it's getting to overshadow your soul and your body with your spirit and to change the way you think, change the way you perceive things. And then in this growth process, you have to choose your destiny again.
Come on.
Right? Of course, in choosing your destiny again, it's revealed to you what you have authority over. Now, yes, the Bible tells us that we are, as the ecclesia, Yeshua came and gave us authority over everything. Right? We have authority over everything. But as for you individually, you have certain mandates given to you to walk in, to flow in as an individual.
Yeah.
And the idea of the Father is behind that is that there's mountains within the earth that needs to be occupied. And at the moment they are occupied now, they're in the cosmos. They're not just in this atmosphere. They break through into different galaxies because they are hidden away. And as a matter of fact, if you understand how Satan has worked this out over the years, he's made sure that Christians want nothing to do with astrology.
Come on.
Why? Because, well, that's where the demonic entities, the dragons and the giants, that's where they hide. So he doesn't want us to go there. Of course, we were taught that you cannot leave your body and travel in the spirit. That's demonic. That's another trick of Satan, so that we don't go, we don't do it. Of course, you've got the two extremes there, the heavens and the sea below, which no one can really go and experience or get the fullness of it, because we can't go into the fullness of heaven, and we can't go into the depth of the sea. Right? There's just places in the sea you can't go. So those are the two places that these giants get to hide. And then, of course, they will hide in the lodgy places where we'll never look. Churches, schools, places where we think it's just not necessary to even go and engage, because why would they want to be there? But of course, this is where they hide. This is where they find themselves. In the previous age, they were called lowlines. You guys can remember that. So the terraforming of the lowlines and re-establishing God's governance over certain areas and sections of the nations, and how these places are connected to demonic bloodlines that gives authority to the enemy to really overshadow all information that comes in to the earth, to the church, to the police, to the government, wherever the mountain is established and has demonic governance over, the revelation that's given will not be the full truth.
Come on.
Now you might say, well, God's sovereign. Why would he allow that? Because you are the one that's supposed to govern the earth.
That's right.
Is that like the ley lines? Low.
They're called low lines or ley lines.
Okay.
It's a spiritual thing that I can't explain or express now, but it's just kind of what they say on certain maps on a map. You will see how certain things are laid out. It will usually be schools, churches, places like that where the enemy has hidden himself. And of course, we begin to understand that it's spiritual mountains that needs to be occupied by sons, because we are the only ones with dominion over the earth. And Satan have realized we're not occupying the space, so we can take over, and he can, because of his revelation, because of the fact that he needs to trade on DNA for him to have any form of inheritance, so he can take anything, he will use what we trade onto to begin to take what he wants.
Yes.
Right, so with the mountains being occupied by the demonic, the church the earth is not receiving full revelation. So there's much hidden and taken from us. That's why we always have half-truth, portions of the truth. For example, if what the church has been teaching over the last 500 years were the truth, then everyone in the church would have been free.
Amen.
That's just logic, because that's what the word teaches us. Well, you know, the word will make you free.
Yes.
And we begin to understand, well, we're not free, so somewhere someone has been doing something in some way, fashion, or form wrong.
That's right.
So the Father kind of just wants to bring an enlightenment to us as we begin to take back these mountains. Now, over the last several years, I have had the privilege, through walking with the seven spirits, to regain access to several of these mountains. And a matter of fact, up to this point, in the States, there's 24, just in the 24 states that the Lord has shown me that have been taken back. And within certain cities, there's specific points within the cities where there was dragons or giants that I had to take back authority and reassess and realign the angelic canopy, because we will take back the authority as sons and overshadow that mountain in place of authority, but erect Prince of Roaring Angels within the specific city over the structure of that mountain, so that no demonic entity can come in. We understand if there's a power or principality hovering over a mountain, then the reestablishment of that there needs to be an angelic being, right?
Yes.
Because the logic is, if there's powers and principalities and rulers of the darkness of this age, then of course we understand there's powers and principalities and rulers of the light of this
That's
age.
right.
So slowly but surely, the Father really just wants us to begin to look at what we need to stop trading into. And it's not so much that we need to stop trading into it, it is the measure in which we trade into, the understanding and revelation that we have in our hearts, the motivation. So there's 7, we're going to be looking at Tyre, which of course we understand the king, and it was a king called Tyre in the Old Testament. We have Jezebel, Athaliah, Cain, Delilah, Leviathan, and Apollyon. So I'm just going to kind of engage with those, well, not engage with them, I'm just going to kind of get revelation regarding the things that we've been doing over the years without really knowing. Now, some of the things is kind of logic, but we'll understand very quickly that it feels so innocent, but in essence you're trading onto the demonic floor when we engage in these levels. Okay, so Tyre is based on money materialism. The king of Tyre ransacked and robbed God's temple, using the gold to build a trading city for his own glory and gain. This is often about money taken from God and used for our own purposes. This includes areas such as tithes. Now you have to understand something. We have a revelation in our hearts that we give tithes to our church. And I have actually no problem with that. You know, I've been a pastor for many years of my life, and there's extreme stress and panic going into Sunday evening or Sunday morning. You know, one day there's 500 people, the next Sunday there's 10 people. You know, you have a financial fluctuation that freaks anybody out that has a building, that has to pay electricity, that has to get a salary out of all of that is busy with the logistics of the church, doing Bible school, doing all kinds of training, not really having time to actually go work and earn a salary, having to try and have people understand that they have to actually give into the ministry so that there could be excess finances for everything that they want to do. And before they can even begin to give to the poor and to give to other nations, they have to pay the building, pay the electricity, pay the gas, pay the water, and pay the salary for the pastor. So I understand that there's a lot of frustration and irritation, but there's certain things because of that we have been doing, that when we give into that, it's a demonic trading. So the Father kind of just wants to break us away from this. So this includes areas such as tithes, offerings, gambling, financial cheating and debt. All about money. Every time you said, I don't have enough, God is always meant to be your provider. You know, when you get to the place in your life and you say, I don't have enough money, but yet you're driving a big car, you're staying in a big house, you've got all these things that you really don't per se need. And of course, we understand that we don't really know how to work our budget. Right? And of course, we take what we have worked for and we give it into the church with the sole purpose to get back. Now, don't misunderstand when I say this. It's not a problem. Why would you give to the kingdom anyway? You just want to harvest. I'm taking by faith something physical, sowing and trading it into something spiritual to get something materialistic back. But that's kind of the wrong motivation, because trading is always for revelation.
Yes.
But in the same breath, if I trade financially, the idea behind my understanding is that I would like some investment back. Right? So please don't misunderstand me. It's the motive in which we do it. And I have had people many times, well, I have given my tithes over the last 5 years. This is the amount of money. According to the Bible, I'm supposed to get back sevenfold. Some places 30, some places 60, some places 100. I'm broke.
Yeah.
This doesn't work. This is a bunch of poop. I don't want anything to do with it. Right? Because it's not how you sow. It's the motivation behind when you get what you give.
Right.
But the Father just kind of wants us to understand. It's getting to that place where you begin to realize that the Father really wants you to put all your faith, your hope, your trust in Him. That's why the kingdom of heaven is available. That's why we go through the blood, with the blood and the cross, into the kingdom of heaven, with our fruit, with what was given to us, what we've worked on in the Spirit and gained. And we trade with that, not just for finance, we trade for revelation insight. Of course, according to your position in the Spirit, the Father will begin to establish you financially. And of course, it does depend what you do in your life. But the Father wants to bless you. You've got your own business. You've got your own business. You are an actor. There's much happening in this room that can gain finances towards you. And of course, walking with Yahweh opens up a gateway, opens up a doorway, right? And in all of that, we're beginning to realize that if we sow into something that's valuable to us, we get something back in return. And so the Father's desire has always been to see your heart in your trade. That's why Yeshua would sit in front of the money bucket, right? And he would look at what the people put in there, not to see how much money he's going to walk out with, but to have an understanding of their hearts.
Right.
Why are they giving? Why are they putting what they're putting in there? You know, this lady eventually gives 2 cents, and he ministers afterwards and tells everybody that she gave more than anyone else. So it's never really about the amount. It's the sacrifice that goes into it and the motivation in which you give or present to the Father. Right? So the Father really just wants us to understand the problem in the church, and everybody that I kind of know, that includes everyone in this room, unfortunately, is that we have a problem with love of money. And while we have a problem with love of money, the excess and the overwhelming demand that the Father wants to place on us financially, that which He wants to pour into the ecclesia, cannot happen. That gate is shut. There's a logic, of course, that works for us now. If you work hard, you do everything right, then there will be finances coming in. You will be blessed. Right? We don't give a tithe per se, because that's the best life. But we don't want the best life. We want the perfect life. Don't misunderstand. Okay? We're not against tithing. But the Father says, well, the Old Testament's way was, you own everything, and you asked me what do I want, and I said, well, 10%. So we give 10%. That's the Old Testament understanding. The New Testament is completely different. He owns everything because we live in Him and through Him. And He says, well, you decide in your heart what you want to give. But it's going to be more than 10%. Now, it might not be, but it's as long as it's something, because the Father wants to see the sacrifice. And it's not about, again, it's not about the church or the pastor wanting to get money out of everybody. It's also understanding the principle. If you get to a place in your walk where you can take what's precious to you and trade it into an invisible kingdom that you can't see, touch, or feel, per se, although we can,
That's right.
then that's the level of faith that the Father is looking for, so that He can begin to place you in the place of authority where all that you need gets met and above.
Yes.
Because that's, of course, His desire. Right?
Yes.
Every time you struggle with your finances and don't engage God, your spirit man must engage Him. That's something we have to remember. When I look at my life, over the last couple of years, we had to learn, the last several years, 15 years, we had to learn how to work without a budget. You work with a budget because you have a certain amount of money coming in at the end of the month. In ministry, you don't have a certain amount of money coming in at the end of the month. You don't never know what's going to come in at the end of the month. You don't know what's going to come in on the Sunday or on the Wednesday or whenever you have a meeting. You just don't know if there's anything actually going to come in. So it's a whole different ballgame. You're starting to trust God at different levels. And His desire for us, of course, to get to that place. When you have financial issues or there's a lack in any way, fashion, or form, where is your faith? Where is your trust? I remember in the beginning, I would find stuff to sell. If I didn't have money, I wouldn't even have need, I just wouldn't have any money. It was a problem for me. I had to have money in my hands. And slowly but surely over the years, the Father had to teach me, well, you don't need to have money with you all the time. But I mean, He's gotten us to the place where we really just don't run out completely. There's always something. But it had to come by faith as we engage and begin to believe that He wants to bless us. He wants to increase us. And His desire for the ecclesia is to understand and see that we don't have to try and manipulate money out of people. And just have them understand the principle. That it's really something to benefit those who give. Yes, the ones receiving will be benefit. That's logic. But the ones giving is really the reason why there's giving available.
Right.
If that's even anything we can understand. Then, of course, we look at Jezebel. That's manipulation, control, domination, which is obviously, we understand, witchcraft. Which, if I listen today, it sounds a lot like the church today. Not all of the church, so don't ever misunderstand me, but there's much of this happening in the church. And of course it sounds very innocent, and it probably, and I want to say this because I love my pastors, I love the church, I love the way they work, I love God's people. And so we don't do things because we on purposefully want to manipulate and control God's people. It's all we know. We do what we do because that's what we were taught to do.
That's right.
It's not like I'm going to be spiteful this week and see how much money I can get out of people so that they can, feel manipulated. It's not the heartbeat, and I've never felt anybody really do that. But what is frustrating is when you go to a meeting, and this is what happened to me, and it was really frustrating. We went to a massive healing crusade in South Africa. This guy comes from another country into our nation. Everyone's excited. People are lining up. Thousands of people lining up outside wheelchairs. They bring a hospital bed in there. And before he even got to the stage, people were already jumping out of wheelchairs, getting out of their hospital beds. Eyes were opening, deaf ears were opening. It was incredible. But then he came up in the church that they were having the meeting. He took up an offering, which took about 45 minutes. And then he came up to preach, and he was preaching, but he wasn't preaching, he was taking up an offering, which took an hour. So that's an hour and 45 minutes just on offering. And then he started preaching 3-4 little words, and then he started praying for people to be healed. And it was incredible for those who were sick. Those who went there to receive something really didn't get anything. And everything we traded, and this is what I'm trying to say, everything we traded at that point, because of the mountain you're trading into, is what we call demonic trading floors. So you're looking at this and you say, Jezebel was the daughter of the king of Tyre, who married the king of Israel to gain control of the religious system. This covers issues such as the use of emotions, politics, sexual wills, blackmail, and using substances to alter how we feel. But it's not just in the church. It's anything you do to make your emotions override who you are, where you are. Anything that anybody do towards you that is used to run on your emotions. And of course it's the giving into it that's then a trade onto a demonic floor. You guys okay? You shaking your heads? Is it a good shake or like a... Yeah. Jezebel is all about three things: manipulation, control, and domination, which is witchcraft. For example, send me $100 today and you'll receive your healing.
Oh, come on.
Who's ever done that?
No.
Never mind that. If you pay $100, and you can phone this line, and if you call this number right now, there'll be a prophet on the other line waiting, and when you donate $100, they will start prophesying over you into your destiny, into your life. And of course we do that because we want that word, and that is trading on a demonic floor. There's another one, and of course this steps on many, many, many toes. Take $1,000 and come under my network.
Come on.
So that I can be your covering.
Yes, indeed.
Now, I need to understand, we might not see it like this, but this is a major problem. Because what are we doing? And usually this would be churches, leaders, taking $1,000 of the church's money, going right back up to the Prince of Tyre.
Come on.
taking of the church's money, trading into another man's mountain
Yes.
to make him greater.
Come on.
So everything that you've established is taken from you, and you are limited on everything. Why? Because what is over you is also taken from you.
That's right.
Whereas Yahweh is your covering, He only gives. He only pours back in. But man just wants to take.
Come on. That's good.
How about fortune telling?
It's pretty much the exact same thing because it's the out alignment.
Yes.
So I mean, it's like prophecy, but it's the corrupt bit. So I mean, I can prophesy over you, and someone can tell your fortune through the tarot cards or your palm, and they could both be very accurate or exactly the same, but it's the source from which it comes from. And then of course, one can destroy your life, and the other one can give and add to your life.
Come on.
Because it's the alignment. It's the same with Adam and Eve, giving into Satan. There was then all of a sudden there was a trade, and so there was two sons. And we're beginning to understand that one was of the seed of Satan and one was of the seed of Adam. That's why the one that was of the seed of Satan murdered the one that came from Adam. Right, we understand that this is the 2-hour sessions of offering, and of course also goes hand in hand with the church controlled by boards. Oh my goodness gracious, help me Jesus. I don't understand that, and I don't like it. I always have a major problem with this, and maybe there's some people that can listen to this on Facebook and YouTube. If you are hired, and you're getting paid a salary at a church, who's paying that salary? And what authority and what power do they have over you? Are they the voice of God in your heart? Or do you have the right to do what the Father puts in your heart to do for the community, for the church? Do you have a board that directs you every step, that tells you what you could, would, and should do, and what you can't do? And if you do it, you get fired.
Come on.
That's a major problem because that is unbiblical, and I've never heard of anything like that in my life, according to the Word of God. Right? And so we need to begin to understand. The Father wants to get off of these trading floors, begin to present ourselves to Him as living sacrifices, begin to divide soul and spirit, operate from out of the kingdom of heaven. Get away from that covering. Now, don't misunderstand this. Get away from the covering. There's covenant. That's a whole different ballgame. Like I always say, if I have to look at my spiritual father, we're in covenant. And the covenant's a covering. But it doesn't make him my covering. Right? It means that we submit one to another. That there is a person in my life, my spiritual father, that can listen to what I teach and call me and says, Gustav, I don't agree with this, and this. Let's discuss it. Let's talk about it. And I won't say, shati api. I'll say, okay, great, let's go through it. I need to get the right perspective, the right insight, because I want to give the right information to God's people. Mike Barnett is an older brother in the spirit. He is not in any way, fashion. They are the church that brought us into the country. They are not in any way, fashion, or form our covering, but we're in covenant. Right? And covenant is that agreement where one submits to another. But if he has to tell me, because I don't like this and this and this, I'll say, okay, let's sit down, let's discuss it. Teach me. But there's not many that can do that. I'm not going to just submit to everybody. I'm not going to have somebody come and say, well, you know what, you need a covering. No, I have a covering. Yeshua is my covering.
Right.
Jesus Christ is my covering. Matter of fact, you go into the court with another man being your covering, you're going to see the behind.
Come on.
You're going to find your donkey very quickly. Okay, let's look at Athaliah. This is the kingly seed. Athaliah was Jezebel's daughter, by some account, sister-in-law. She married the king of Judah and tried to control the future seed by killing all the possible heirs. Okay, she used the political system to assert authority and became the only queen that Judah ever had. This is basically what it entitles. And of course, everybody has traded into this. I don't care who you are, where you come from, this is stuff that we trade in on a daily basis. And it's not really, it sounds harmless, but it's giving into something that's stealing from you daily. Things like a poor self-image, believing lies, familiar spirits, Mosaic influence, Freemasons, right? All of these belong to a trading floor. See, like familiar spirits, you walk into a church, the pastor don't greet you, and immediately the voices start telling you, oh, they don't like you. It's because you're underweight or you're overweight, or your hair's so curly, or you're not dressed right. It's because, you know, you're just invisible, no one ever sees you. That's the type of things that a familiar spirit would say, you know, well, you used to do that when you were really depressed. Why don't you start doing that again? And of course, we're getting into that, is trading onto that floor. How you guys doing? Basically saying, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm a failure, I'm ugly, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not fat enough. I don't think anyone else says that.
You mean excuses, right? In
Whatever,
my world.
Yes.
That's what we call it.
Because there's nothing wrong with wanting to better yourself, live a healthy life, look after yourself, but it's always the motivation.
Right.
You know, nowadays we look at magazines and think, well, that's what I should look like. And that's what we put out, that's what we do, that's it, that's the motivation, it's a little bit of a problem. Right? We don't even understand that these people aren't healthy, they are struggling with all kinds of depression and sickness and disease,
Right.
and just to get on that photo, who did they have to sleep with? There's all kinds of stuff that goes into it, and that becomes our idol because you become what you behold. And we need to begin to understand that Father kind of don't want us to trade into these things.
That's right.
He wants us to understand that you have to accept yourself now, because if you're overweight now and you struggle with what you look like and you want to lose weight and you lose the weight but you didn't accept yourself in the beginning, you're never going to accept yourself. So that's just not just for ladies, that's for everybody. You know, we need to begin to understand there are certain things that we need to accept first before we start changing. Because if we have a goal set, and we reach that goal and we only live for that goal, then what happens then? There has to be a little bit more than what the world set aside for us. Right? That whole thing, I'm not good enough, that's a major, major part of this trading floor. That's where Satan wants to come in and take from you. Because you are good enough. You are perfect as you are. You are as beautiful as can be. But see, we don't understand that. And we forget about the whole fact of life, that the beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yes.
You know, what's pretty for Claire is not pretty for me. What's ugly for me is not ugly for Claire. We can look at the same stuff. For example, I look at a couple of chairs, because we're looking for tables of chairs in our lounge. So I look at some chairs and I say, oh, this is nice, we should get this. And I show it to her and she goes, what? Are you joking me? That's the ugliest chair that I've ever seen in my life. I'm like,
Really?
seriously? It's beautiful. She's like, no, it's terrible, I want it. So, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and we kind of forget that. Everybody wants the same, wants to be the same, just like the church. And the church wants everybody to do the same thing, be the same. And of course, just that in itself is a demonic trading floor.
Yes.
Of course, the Father's desire for us is to move on to the next phase. Okay. Cain, which comes to the understanding of murder. Right? Cain was the son of Satan, the serpent seed, who murdered Abel, his half-brother, because of jealousy and the nature he inherited from his father. Now that could be a theological discussion that could freak half the church out, but there's facts in all of that. Because in reality, we need to begin to understand, why did God reject Cain's offering? What is wrong with God? You know, that's kind of like, seriously, why? Why would you do that? It was the motivation in his heart. And why would he have a different motivation? Why would he be different than his brother? They come from the same seed. They would be the same bloodline. Why would there be such difference? Because they weren't from the same bloodline. And there was corruption within one of the bloodlines. So we just need to kind of look at it like that. This is not only a physical attack, but any kind of anger, character assassination, accusations, selfishness. Now, of course, this includes everybody. You know, I mean, it's the easiest thing on the planet to be selfish. When you have a lot of kids, you begin to realize it's not that easy to be selfish anymore. But you still, I mean, if I look at, and I'm not to judge in any way, fashion, form, if I look at people that has no children, they're not married, it's just them. They're the most selfish people on the planet, most of the time. And what else can they be? Their whole life is themselves.
Right.
So that's again, as soon as you get married, something has to change. You have to give in.
Right.
You know, you can't continue the same ways because there's someone else in your life that you have to pay attention to. And of course, with kids coming in, there's a whole different ballgame. You have to change again. Right? Everything has to change the whole time. The focus has to come off of you. Now, understand that anger is not the sin, it's what you do in your anger.
Come on.
Yeah.
Right? It's in your anger. Because Cain could have been angry with Abel without killing him.
Yeah.
But it's the killing, the murder that took it a little bit further. It's that trading floor where he took our hymns with life. And we do that all the time. This is gossip. Right? We are very talented with these things. Facebook. I almost fell into it again today. I was on Instagram. And someone put something stupid on there. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, woo! And I'm going to put my boxing gloves on and just walk up to him and punch him in the nose. And of course you want to start typing, you know. No, you can't say that, that's ridiculous, this is the truth, blah, blah, blah. It's just gossip, it's just a bunch of rubbish. It's what we want to, it's almost like it's like trying to pull you in.
Come on.
Yeah.
And I mean, I find myself typing out a whole message and the Father's like, delete it.
Yes.
And sometimes I'll actually send it through and he will say, take it off. I remember someone saying, that's a thing about me the other day. Oh, listen to this guy. He calls forth the angels. He says Jesus isn't the Son of God. He talks all that stuff. And of course he didn't even listen to half of the message and he had no idea what he's talking about. And I said that the Ten Commandments is not commandment, it's just suggestions. And I wanted to write this guy a message with some little knots and crosses in and stars. But I finished the message and the Lord's like, are you joking me? Delete it. Leave it. You do not have to justify yourself to anybody for any reason, in any way, fashion, or form.
You need haters.
Yeah, you need, absolutely. So of course we're beginning to understand that that's a trading floor that we need to step away from. Now I'm not saying get off Facebook. It's engaging in the lies and the deceits and the stupid things that religious minds find themselves in.
Come on.
And I mean, I remember saying, because I was talking about the seven spirits being seven spirits somewhere, someday, and there was a lot of comments, and I was talking here and there. One of my friends, a minister, said, Gustav, this is not the place to discuss this type of theology. And I was like, right, and I deleted all my comments. I actually deleted the whole thing. Because it's just not the place, right? There's just too much that we get to give into trade. And of course then we are being told how bad we are and everybody is wrong. This church is wrong, that church is wrong. And there's so much stuff that we just can't fathom or explain. Father just wants us to step away from that.
Come on.
Delilah, seduction. She offered pleasure and gratification, seduction. For example, Samson, in order to rob him of his destiny. Now this happens in most of our lives. I mean, maybe not everybody's life, but it definitely happened in my life. I know it happened in Claire's life. I know there's some of you that went through the same thing. This trading floor is where we find people living in a fantasy, especially romantic or sexual. This is just one of the aspects of it. Fantasy women, for example. I don't know if you guys have Wilson Boone books in America. Mills and Boone's. My mom loved all these
Like
books.
romance novels?
Yeah.
Oh,
My God. So what it does for women, most women are not drawn to pornography, but they're drawn to these romance novels. Someone romancing them and loving on them, doing all these things, and it becomes something that we get conditioned by. I mean, look at my sister, for example. I love her, and my mom as well. They would read these books every day. My sister would read it in Afrikaans. My mother would read these English books. That's all they did, and it was just the Molson Boone. I never read it because the name itself is like, oh, Jesus. But what happens then in your marriage is because you have a perception of what it should be like, you don't get that, and so there's this major conflict. Same with men, with pornography. You get this idea behind what it should be like, and it's not going to be like that. We understand pornography today. It is brutal, violent, and absolutely disgusting.
That's right.
Now, we don't see it because it's never shown, but if you have to speak to somebody that used to be into pornography, an actual act of pornography is violent, aggressive, and nobody really likes it. It's just because of the money. That's of course a demonic trading floor. And watching it, even reading these books, is trading into that demonic floor.
Right.
Same with some of the movies that we watch. And I include myself in all of this. I've watched all kinds of movies and then realized, well, this was actually a training floor because of the mentality that it gives you. Twilight, for example. It sounds really nice and it's sort of romanticized and it's wonderful. It's demons taking humans into their lairs. You know, we have it today. Do we believe that there's vampires out there? Well, unfortunately, there is vampires out there. They are hidden, but there's all kinds of demonic influences out there that wants to bring us into a close place. How are you guys doing? Find ways to gain or hang on to acceptance, approval, affirmation, and of course the lust for money, power or influence. This is all part of seduction. I don't know per se if men can do this. I don't know where women are at, but for women to sleep away to the top in any business is pretty good and pretty easy. Am I right? I'm looking at the ladies. I don't know what to say. I'm thinking of myself and I don't really know how to get out of it. But I mean, I've seen it, okay? I've seen it. Men, I don't think men can per se do that. You know, I don't know. But maybe in a way, some way you can. But that's kind of an idea of how we do it. You know, there's the seduction, the things that we fall into. That's a trait on a demonic floor. It's not always in the church, but it can be in the church. It doesn't have to be sexual. It doesn't have to be in any way, fashion, or form like that. But someone would say, you know what, I heard that this guy, he was doing this and this and this for the church and that in the church, and before he knew it, he was a pastor of the church. And that's what I want. That's all I've ever wanted in my life. So I'm going to start doing that as well. And we find ourselves doing things, being seduced into doing things to have the result that we want.
Come on.
And of course, we understand that is a form of trading. And of course, it's kind of what it's about, and it's for men and women. It's every time you've made someone lust after you, every time you have been seduced out of something, every time you have had sex out of marriage, you traded with Delilah. Of course, I'm not boasting in it, but that's something I had to really get worked at in my life. It's not really anything, but it's a major problem, right? And of course, it's one of the easiest things today. Then we are looking at Leviathan. How you guys doing? Good. You guys okay? Leviathan is about gossip, lies, and deception. A demonic sea creature, a twister, a liar. Sounds like Satan, right? It must be family. It's about lying or cheating to make others think better of yourself. Now this can be in the church. There's no such thing as a white lie. Right? Are we all guilty? Yes, of course. Especially when you're evangelist. I remember my pastor. There was like 1,000 people and about half of them gave their lives to Jesus. Dude, I was there. There was 200 people and no one gave their lives to Jesus. I think there's a couple of rededications. And of course that's just exaggerating. He is a phenomenal man of God and I honor and love him very much. But that is still a trade. Because maybe not consciously, but subconsciously we try to make ourselves look better.
Come on.
Now see, these things doesn't sound like it's a major problem. Because in our day-to-day life, this is the way we do things. But of course, as sons of Yahweh, we need to stop trading on these floors so that we can begin to elevate into where the Father wants us to go. His desire is to propel us to a deeper place.
Yes.
And this is blockages that does not allow us to move forward. And we do these things without knowing that what we're doing is not right. Now again, we're not eating of the tree of good and evil. It's trying to get to the tree of life.
Yes.
And of course, because of our perception and understanding in our trading, all we want is the tree of good and evil. This is right, this is wrong. So what I'm giving you a list of things we should stop doing, and immediately your mind is, okay, so this is right and that is wrong. So no, it's about intimacy and desire to go deeper into Christ and understanding that now that I have revelation of what I have been doing and I should not be doing it, I can move around that and start doing it in the right way.
That's right.
So that the Father can propel me to a deeper place. Right. It's half-truths, self-promotion, looking to impress, gossip, and what you are sharing, of course, with your friends and your family. That is one pastor friend. Every time I see him, he wants to gossip. to me about other men of God. Now, sometimes I don't mind because it's really interesting. But what do I do then? I'm just trading into the same front, same floor as what he's trading into.
Well, there's honesty right there. Right.
It's like, yeah, and really, and then, is that what happened? It's an interesting story, and it's almost like you feel that I'm just listening, and he's just venting, and it's really good for us. But it's not. It's gossip.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, sometimes when I get to, we'll get to the place one day where I say, well, I don't want to talk about this guy if he's not here. And that's kind of where we're supposed to go, but not engage the conversation, because then you're trading on that same platform. Exciting, right? The twister is the liar, the deceiver, the perverter. And of course, we have this in church. Now, we have it in the Roman Catholic Church, we have it in the Episcopalians, and I don't know, I just like to say Episcopalian. The Lutheran, and I don't know, you guys don't have Dutch Reformed, the Baptist, we've got all these funny names for all the different church denominations, but it's everywhere. Of course, and the less of the Spirit of Yahweh is in the church, the more of these problems we find. And because there's more people going to the churches where there's less of God, and because there's less condemnation, they go there. But of course, there's not condemnation in the bigger churches where they're spirit-filled, but it feels condemned because you are being told to stop doing the stuff you're doing and to move to a deeper place with Yahweh. Whereas the religious churches don't really preach that stuff. It's about motivation and how good God is and how wonderful God is and how you're okay where you're at because His grace and His mercy will overshadow you all the days of your life. But we get to the place where we just almost do things because we feel, well, this is okay, because that's what I've always been doing. And the Father, and you'll begin to understand, as you go into the kingdom of heaven, as you elevate to the kingdom of Yahweh, and you begin to see who you are and what He's revealed to you, how these things slowly but surely begin to stop. You know, me and my wife have always, she had to teach me how to give. So when we started trading, I was trading into my spiritual father. I had the privilege to financially trade into the right grounds from the very beginning. Because when I was younger as a Christian, I never really tithed because I really didn't earn all that much, and so I didn't have the faith to give. And I was most of the time either in ministry, or I just started working, or I just was backsliding. But I started giving, and once I started understanding the principle of trading, it changed everything.
Yes.
So I never had financially, I never traded into demonic floors as much. But so when I started repenting and started stepping out of it, I didn't have to go through all that spiel. But when I look at the other things, the gossip, the lies, the deception, the liar, the deceiver, all these things, the perverted thoughts, the stuff that I've had most of my life, this is trading floors I was on, even in my spiritual born-again days, preaching the gospel, going into nations. Things that I had to repent of, things I had to step back from and say, how do I deal with this, Lord? Exciting, right? I love this. The Hebrews say, sin is everything that is not like it was in the beginning. The Greek says, don't smoke, don't drink. So basically, the entire earth is in sin.
Come on.
Right? Because it's not replaced, it's not restored into its image.
Yes.
And of course, the Father's desire for us to begin to understand what we need to do, what our plan is. But I can't begin to legislate if I'm still trading demonically. Exciting, right? Apollyon, that opposes the gospel. A fallen angel who opposes preaching of the gospel. And this is basically where whenever we have wanted or watered down the gospel of the kingdom, offered a cheap salvation gospel, been involved with false cults, been ruled by fear or embarrassment, or failed to share the full truth of the gospel for any reason. Of course, this is for anybody and everybody. Because if I listen to some of my religious friends who say to me, you water down the gospel, especially when I preach on the Ten Commandments, that is the marriage ketubah, and I try and explain to people that it's not the commandments the way we see it, then I water down the gospel. But of course, it's not the water down of the gospel. The water down of the gospel is when the Father asks you to do something and you don't do it. When you're meant to tell someone about Jesus, or He wants you to go prophesy over somebody, or He wants you to go relate to somebody in the more about the things of Yahweh. And of course, understanding that we want to go preach the gospel, but we're preaching a religious gospel that tell people that they need to repent of God.
Yes.
where the Father doesn't bring the gospel across like that, because the gospel means good news.
Right.
Repent or die is not good news.
Right. Right.
Right? I don't even know what that means. If I was not born in someone, if I'm not born again and someone comes up to me and says repent or die, I don't know what that didn't sound right. Are you covered in the blood of Jesus? Oh my God, no, that is disgusting. I don't know. I mean, when I was not born again, these words would have freaked me out. I would have probably punched you in the face. Matter of fact, a friend of mine was in church, and he was not born again. His girlfriend was born again, and she took him to church, and he's right in the back, and the pastor comes running around there, and he's telling everybody, "Come on, guys, praise God, clap hands." And he's standing there, bored out of his skull. And eventually the pastor comes behind him, and he slaps him on the back, and he said, "Come on, dude, worship God." And he said, "Buddy, you touch me like that again, I'm gonna punch you." And he just thought he was joking. He pushed him again, and he just turned around and hit him in the face.
What?
Yeah. There's just some things we don't do. You don't know who that guy is. Doesn't want to repent or die. What's that? Of course, the Father wants us to engage with Him, engage with the Spirit, so that when we begin to receive from Him, what we do is effective.
Come on.
Walking around Bourbon Street with a sign that says repent or die, meet Jesus, stop abortion, do all these things. It sounds really noble, but it's not.
Right.
Why? Because the world doesn't understand it.
Right.
I was raped. Why can't I have an abortion? What type of God wouldn't allow me to do that? What is wrong with you people? We don't look at it from all the perspectives. It's just a fleshly thing that we do. It's trading on this floor. How you guys doing? So basically what the Father wants us to get to understand is we're still going to go, so next week we're going to do the godly trading floors. But for you to understand where you are at with all these, what you have done, what you need to repent of, what you need to go back into, listen to the DVD again, go back to maybe some of Ian's teachings on this, go back maybe even Justin, he teaches on some of the same stuff. I think Michael Van Flamen's got some of this stuff in his books. I actually have a book on trading floors. But find some of this stuff so you can have a greater understanding of it, because it's so easy for us to continue to do things that just doesn't benefit us. Now, the Father's desire for us is to stop trading into these things. See, we can trade into, back into it with the right motive.
That's right.
And the right heartbeat, because His desire for us to take back the mountains
Come on.
so that it's occupied by sons and daughters and erected by the prince of warring angels,
Yes.
not by demonic entities, not by Satan himself, so that what we are receiving is pure and coming out of the heart of Yahweh. So that when we do stand in front of the mirror, it's not to deceive someone else,
Come on.
Yeah.
right? It's to look good for yourself and for your husband or your wife, or your husband or your wife to be. How you guys doing? I spend a lot of time in the gym, and the funniest thing I've ever seen is that ladies don't think. They would come to the gym with a shirt that's just here, the belly button is showing, and they would be pulling that shirt down all day long to try and cover their butts. And my thinking to this is, it's not going to work.
That's right.
You did not put that shirt on to cover your butt. So stop trying to do it. You're freaking everybody out. And all you're really doing is bringing attention to yourself. Don't always understand the whole cleavage thing and the whole butt down to here with the G-string showing. But we need to start focusing. And I don't know what men does to do the same thing for women, but it's our responsibility to look after each other. I'm not saying, well, dress like a nerd. Dress the way you want, and understand there's people that are struggling with things, that it will affect them. If you are the reason that someone else is falling, what's the motivation behind you wearing what you're wearing? What are you doing? Why are you doing it like that? What are you trading into? Why do you go to church and giving what you're giving? Why are you trading financially? Why are you giving your tithes? Why are you giving? Why are you not giving? What are you doing in your ways, in your life, to propel yourself to go deeper into Yahweh that now you know is not of God? And how are you going to change it? How are you going to stop that from affecting you? Because you might not know that it's affecting you, but now that you know that what you've been doing is not right, can you align it and go to a higher place with Yahweh when you stop trading on these floors.
Come on.
His desire for us is to operate from out of the heavens and to trade in the kingdom of heaven with what we have available there. That's why we give to him financially, so that we can receive revelation, intimacy, knowledge. Why? Because I spend most of my day working. Now, I don't know how you guys work, but if I look at the average person working, it's 8 hours a day. 8 to 12 hours a day. That's where you spend all your time. That's where your family's not with you, your children's not with you. All you're doing is working to earn money.
Yep.
Now you come to a meeting or to church and they ask you for money. That's frustrating. So I don't want to do it because I've worked for my money. But when you decide in revelation to what the Father's desires for you are, to take up what's most valuable to you. And you can't trade your children. Come on, seriously?
Dang.
You can't trade your children, you can't trade your husband, you can't trade your wife. Right? It would have been nice, but it doesn't work like that, right? It wouldn't have been
Used
nice.
to.
Can't do that. But it's something that the Father wants us to understand. No one asks you for your money. You know, the church, that's not their heartbeat. Most of the time, it's not their heartbeat. It's so that you understand that when you take what's valuable to you, that sacrifice is created and designed from out of the Father's heart to propel you, to bless you. It's not just the financial income. It's to bless you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, to enhance you, revelation, insight, to pour mysteries, secrets into you, to elevate you to a deeper place. Because that is the problem with the ecclesia, is the love of money. So when we start understanding these trading floors and we step away from it and start walking what the Father has for us, there's an elevation and propulsion in everything we do. And it's his heartbeat for us to begin to understand God and trading. And we step away from what we have been doing out of ignorance and start moving into what he has for us today as the ecclesia. Let's stand. Father, we just want to thank you and praise you and understand that there's so much that we have done that we can change in our hearts and in our lives. There's so much that you want to reveal to us that can literally change everything about us. Your desire is so much prosperity. Your desire is for us to be blessed in every area of our lives. But we have been doing things. We have been sowing and trading into mountains that's occupied by demonic entities that does not allow full revelation back to us. It doesn't allow the fullness of the blessing that you want to send in back to us. But now that the ecclesia is beginning to see, and we're beginning to go back into the spirit realm, we're beginning to take back what belongs to us. We're beginning to take the authority that you've given us, and we're eliminating these powers and principalities and rulers of the darkness of this age, occupying mountains with giants and dragons. Father, we're beginning to see what we need to change, what we need to align. We're beginning to understand who we are. And slowly but surely we're gaining back all these things that Satan has had in his hand. And as we're getting back what he's had, and we're getting back what was meant to be ours, things are falling into place. I see in the Spirit just how the church is beginning to ignite and beginning to grow into what the Father has for us. It's an exciting time. And Father, we just want to honor you and praise you. And I ask, Father, you will bless everyone in this room, and may your name and everything be glorified. In the name of Yeshua. Amen.